Who needs the news anyway? News, it's everywhere you look. From the front doorstep in the old fashioned paper form to the pop up screen on your phone, from an app, and now even on the gas pump screen so you can stay updated. News is and always will be an everyday asset that we as humans need to be informed about. News is also the one thing that we often take for granted to the point that we just expect it to be there. I should only have to take a glance at the weather widget on my phone to see what the temperature is going to be for the day, right? World news? Who cares? I want to see what the latest news is about the trending superstars of society. Have we ever taken the time to think about the work that is involved in bringing us the latest information possible? The people who are out in extreme situations, often risking their life in some way to take a photo or video for us? How about the sacrifices of family time, personal time, and countless hours of editing, researching, and planning just so we can have the latest update possible? Have you ever just looked at the front page newspaper picture or the lead article picture and wondered what everyone is going through or what the mood feeling is like at the moment? Did the article spin the content in a positive, negative, or neutral way? How did that affect everyone involved later? What would you do if one day you woke up and there was no more news? For example, what if your local newspaper or station sold out? The Colorado Springs Sun newspaper was one of those casualties. Publications ran from 1970 to 1986, and formerly known as the Colorado Springs Free Press from 1951 to 1970. The Colorado Springs Sun was a local newspaper located in the downtown area and a competitor of another local newspaper named the Gazette. February 28th, 1986 would be the last publication of the long running paper as they sold out to Arrow for $30 million. Arrow bought the company, assets, the name, and all the archives, which made it extremely difficult to find any information on the paper, as Arrow owns all the content and never redistributed it for the public. My report lies mainly on the word of those whom I've interviewed and what, if any, evidence they have to corroborate their stories. Who cares about some old small paper that you could only remember if you were there at the time? It's 2023. How does any of that relate to my life? I interviewed my boss in an oral history paper I was doing, and the topic was local newspapers. Jim Spitzer, 72, an active multi businessman and retired pilot, tells me a story of his better years back in 1976 on Labor Day for the hot air balloon liftoff and events in Colorado Springs. He says that participating in the balloon events with his hot air balloon and crew that year was one of the best days of his life. Jim's epic story of fun and frolicking through the air was as awesome as I could possibly have imagined, and I learned a lot about what it takes to be a balloon pilot and balloons themselves. What I enjoyed the most about hearing was he had to make an emergency landing somewhere in downtown Colorado Springs and earn a spot in the Colorado Springs Sun newspaper with a nice picture of his landing and a small interview on the subject. Jim also remembers running ads in the paper for his business as well. To me, those stories are what make that old newspaper relevant. The same oral history paper led me to an interview with my father, Richard Stressner, and the man who is known as the LBL. Both in their early 70s and active members of the Sons of Silence Motorcycle Club, the topic, once again, was local newspapers. The interview started with my father, whose story starts somewhere in 1970. He says that the Sons were under investigation for conspiracy for attempted murder and kidnapping, and that some of them had been arrested on the matter one day. He also goes on to tell me how one of the local newspapers, the Gazette, was bought out by local politicians and law enforcement. When it came to any publicity on the Suns, the Gazette was always there to make them look bad, and how law enforcement was ever vigilant in attending to crime. At that time, a reporter named Jared Mosier, who worked for the Colorado Springs Sun, was very interested in doing his own report and went on a ride along with the club for a while. That's a hell of a story. The local newspaper backing up what was considered an outlaw biker gang? Unheard of. My next interview was on the same matter with another member of the club who is known as the LBL. I asked him what he remembered about the incident and how he felt about the Gazette's spin on the club and how the Colorado Springs Sun was involved. According to the LBL, one of the club members was dating the local sheriff's daughter, and the sheriff wasn't having it. So the cops came up with alleged charges of conspiracy for murder and kidnapping against the Suns. The Gazette had stirred up so much publicity that it attracted reported Gary Mosier from the Colorado Springs Sun to do an investigative report on the club. Mosier had been invited to do a ride along for a while and get to know the guys and how they really were. According to the LBL, there was a day when he and some of the club members and Mosier were at a local bar in downtown Colorado Springs having some drinks and whatnot, when suddenly the bar was filled with police and they were taking all the members outside and arresting them. Apparently, the police department was a little rough with most of the members and even Mosier himself until they came to realize who Mr. Mosier was and immediately released him. Subsequently, any charges against the club and its members were dropped or dismissed, and as a result, restraining orders were issued to certain police officers against the club and its members as well. A positive article on what is known as an outlaw biker gang from a major local newspaper was incredible and gave the people another perspective on the issue. The fact that there were big, respected people in the Sun's corner battling for them was a glorious hope for democracy and true news reporting. What if the Colorado Springs Sun never existed? How would those events for those people have turned out otherwise? I know I never would have had the privilege of being able to share the memories of the sun with those who were blessed by it. The slight chance that the name was mentioned in a journalism class took me on a journey to find out a little history on an almost forgotten newspaper that I could share with others. Life is the most extraordinary adventure that we will ever have the privilege of experiencing. And in that time, the moments and the memories of what we have experienced are what shape the lives we live and how we view the world. And it is our responsibility to preserve our history as best we can. So thank you, Colorado Springs Sun, for bringing us so many great stories and memories over the years.